Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Whitaker Center. My name is Brian Massey, and I am one of the English teachers here at CASA. It's my privilege and honor to serve as your host this evening as we celebrate our creative writers at CASA. I'm sorry, what's that? Excuse me one second. You're sending me a what? Wait, Mr. Wendling doesn't think I can do this myself? I mean, if he insists. All right, so apparently I'm going to be your co-host this evening. I'm not really sure who they're sending me, but I guess we'll find out when the person... Oh, there's someone. Miss Callan? No? Mrs. Reinhardt? No, Mrs. Leonard?
No, it's me. Don't you recognize me, Miss Flood?
Oh, I guess it's the mask, sorry. And I've never seen you look so put together.
Well, I have to say that this mask you are wearing, major improvement to your face.
Oh, thanks. So they sent you here to babysit me?
They don't want you getting slapped like Chris Rock.
All right then, well, let's get this show on the road. Just go ahead and read the teleprompter.
There is no teleprompter. Good evening, everyone. My name is Katie Flood, and we are so thrilled to be celebrating our amazing creative writers with all of you this evening. Tonight you will be hearing a plethora of pieces, including poetry, short stories, and more.
Before we begin, the writers would like to thank our administrators, Mr. Wendling and Mrs. Reinhardt, the CASA Board of Directors, the Whitaker Center for hosting our event, and the faculty and staff at CASA, as well as all of the friends and family members, both here and those who could not make it.
Our first presenters this evening will be our 9th and 10th grade students. So, without further ado, please welcome our first writer to the podium.
Hello. My piece is called Homesick. We begin to cross, you the leader, and I follow. Faded memories baiting me to a new world. My feet still in the center of the road, bitter smoke tasting of dirty warm water that curdles in my stomach, reminding me of late nights and vicious green splattered over the old carpet. It tasted like home. The moment passes, and the world continues. You are ahead, free of the past, and I follow slowly. I reach the entrance and disappear into a dense thicket of green. Trees stand like intrinsic statues, pristine in their glory. Vines hang often like colorful robes. Birds flurry like gawking tourists, flying to and fro to mock, cheer, and stare. In the precious moments of my mind, it looks like home. My eyes blink, the dream fades, and I follow. The path is of granite and earth, blocks of cement interrupted by the cracks where the earth rebels against humanity. I kneel, fingers grazing the tiny bumps of realistic plastic hair, and I think of bicycles and calm walks. I think of scraped knees and the pulling of weeds, and it felt like home. You pass the crack between green statues and iron homes, but I pause. I stand and listen to the careless stimulation of machinery. To savor how it is thunder before lightning, unpleasant friends before coffee. It is so painfully close to memory that home sits at the top of my tongue. I swallow, the machinery pauses, and I follow. You go to the top of the buildings, and I follow. Each stair is a remnant of another journey, the race to the top when victory left me with heaving lungs and a soft smile. The stairs are pristine white, left pure, untainted by tiny feet or rainy days. I don't hurry up the stairs, and the race never starts. We reach the top, and the air is clean, too high to be tainted by busy cars and screaming matches on cracked concrete. This air tastes of sunlight and care. This air tastes like movie nights with tight lips refusing to spoil. This air tastes like picnics with siblings with messy faces and friends with soft smile. It tastes like home. The word bubbles in my throat, relentlessly annoying like sisters and brothers before it disappears, becoming wind. I lose my ownership like that. Yet still, the wind blows. You are next to me. All of these are faint shadows of home. All of this isn't home, but hope bubbles in my chest like a spreading flame. All of this could be home. Thank you.
Hi. My piece is called The Old Man's Wish. There once was an old man whose only wish is to dance without a break. The Nutcracker, Dance of the Blessed Spirits, Swan Lake. He dreamed to twist and tap, melt the dance of life in a snap. To dance in every city street, being the best in every place he placed his feet. New York, London, Paris, Beijing, and more. He loved the lights on him, as luminous as an Hawaiian shore. But the old man can never attempt to feel the rhythm he senses. Every time he bends his hip, his body would come to their defenses. As he'd rake in the feeling of all the achy years, his veils would pool at his eyes, dragging down the tears. To suffice, the old man tried other things, writing, art, plucking on musical strings, but he could never get away from the fact that in his heart, true love lies in the twists and the taps. So the old man goes to bed, all of his abstract thoughts clouding his head. His thoughts are filled with the twists and taps. He thinks it's real, but it's all fulfilled in his nap. The next day, he wakes up and heads to the store. He could only go there and back. That's all his bones could afford. And on his way there, he passes a sign. Dance instructions needed. Sign here to apply. So the old man writes his name and address on the line, and he waits and waits, but faces defeat over time. He doesn't get an update until one day. He gets the position and all the negativity flushes away. The old man is excited for his first day on the job. He gets a new uniform, a name tag, and a fob. On the first day, he meets all new people, and his dancing career has got a sequel. It took a little for him to get used to the new, younger dancers with a younger groove, but the young people accepted him at all times, and soon he got used to the new rhymes. His feet finally feel the floors of New York, London, Paris, Beijing, and more. As his dance team travels the world, his heart mends. He's refound his heart's biggest love, the end. Thank you.
Hello. My name is Shannon, and I will be reading a piece called Dweller. You cannot cage what never wished to fly. In the cracked bedroom mirror, a reflection, not his own, gazed back at him. The glass split into jagged fractures, breaking apart the image of what used to be his face into unrecognizable pieces. His cracked lips, his sullen eyes, his pale complexion. Absently, he combed through his lengthy hair, pressing the dead ends against his fingertips. Perhaps the mirror wasn't cracked after all. Your Highness was the only name he'd ever known. He'd never been given one. At a time, he thought it was a blessing from the singing angel up above, a gift of something he could call his own. However, the song of the heavens was a sorrowful one, and the lament which he was named after sung nothing about who he was. A name was supposed to give you an identity, not puppet you to play the part of another. But oh, how he longed to mold into its shape. With 1 foot out the grave, there was no use in walking. Instead, his stolen wings would guide him through the sunlight, and he'd pray the wax wouldn't melt. For if he were to fall, would the people he called his own care to catch him? Or would they weep for the crown, but never the king? He was a ghost in the shadow of the living. If he could gather the courage to speak, would anyone recognize the voice that had been spoken over his entire life? His words tangled and twisted in his throat, forcing him to bite his tongue and swallow them down, yet he'd rather choke than spit something out he'd regret later. A word was a weapon, and it was dangerous unsheathed. With no name and no voice, a heavy hum of a heart was all he was. No beat, no rhythm, no lyrics. Just the empty melody of a meaningless song ringing in the back of his mind, its ancient meaning long forgotten. A ballad for the nameless. He put upon himself the role of holding up the heavens, for if it were to fall, he would hold the sky above their heads, and maybe even a couple of stars. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Kiara, and my piece is called Healing. The beginning was sweet. You would kiss me under the lemony sun, and jolts of joy would rush through my veins. It wasn't perfect, but we had a home together, and for me, that was enough. All of our colors melted together when your lifeless hand molded in mine, when your fingers grazed my cheek, when your tears leaked into my skin, your blue eyes tainting every horizon I gazed upon. My warm, sandy skin leaking ruby red, the rusted blade you held, your icy pink lips and your jagged teeth resting behind them, your dotted cheeks and the vile grin that held them apart. I recall the colors of that room, the one that we found swirls of love in, all of those swirls corrupted with tinges of lust and hunger, key lime walls muted by the red of our wounded souls. Sing me a lullaby of lies, and I'll rejoice in the sound of deception, kissing the rims of paper cups like how I kissed you all those nights ago, your song of jubilation imprinted in my brain. The beat of your breath, the drumming of your broken heart, the twirling of your gaunt hands down my indigent vessel. Now I grin, alone, basking in my sorrow, drowning in sheets that still reek of you, placing myself in the hands of possibility, maybe. Just maybe. Gambling with my life with smoke dancing around me, my decaying teeth roll like dice, my cracked bones still humming to your tune, my brain twists when exposed to your face. Inhale, exhale, stuffing my lungs with the memory of you. You're no longer here, but you linger in the howling wind, pricking my heart when I smile. I still wonder what we could have been if I told you everything I couldn't say. I'm running, trying to escape. What if I molded myself to your every desire, keep my stomach empty to fill your heart, cut off the curves and dips of my body that disgusted you, make you want to love me? Boulders chained to my dying ankles as you fill every part of me that make you want to stay. Caged like a flightless bird, watching our home burn slowly from above. I'm running away from the satisfaction I derived from the numbness I felt for so long. Looking in the mirror at a person I know no longer, the dull ache in the very pit of my throbbing core covering up the battle of my rapid, ceaseless thoughts, your ghost mocking my effort, lemony sun turning to lackluster nightfall. I now hold the rusted blade, dipping it beneath the surface of my cracking skin, blue horizons now achromatic. How can I heal a bludgeoned soul? One made of only memories that can exist no longer. Erase me from your mind, and I'll try to make my heart forget you. Maybe not today, and I'll still love you tomorrow. But one day, maybe I'll forget. Perhaps I'll find new love, or I'll accept loving you from afar, watching your vile grin as I fade in your memory, key lime walls fading to the lemony yellow our sun once was. A smile creeps on my quivering lips as your presence fades, my tattered skin parts, allowing you to dissolve away, creating a home for new love. I rest my hand atop your bones, ripping my hand away from yours and kissing my palms. I dance on her grave, knowing that one day, I'll find a way to breathe again and be free. My horizon's now lilac, and my sandy skin beams as our key lime walls wane to ash. Our home was one that was never made to prosper, but rather to teach. Teach you what a stable foundation is not. Show you what love is not. Our home was constructed on shoddy soil by wilting hands. We had to watch this home eradicate to learn how to not build a house. I place myself in light, and I hold my frame as I piece together a home of my own. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Nathaniel Laudermilk, and I will be reading the first chapter of a piece I've been working on called The Steam City. It was dawn, and the old man laid in bed, still and quiet as the morning air that surrounded him. Like all mornings, he knew that eventually he must rise to the challenge of opening his eyes to his surroundings and to the day ahead of him. This particular day made the effort even harder. He opened one eye cautiously, then the other, waiting for the sinking feeling in his chest to flood in. The old man's bed fit perfectly into the upper right-hand corner of his square room. From here, with both eyes open, he examined the chipped gray paint that covered his walls and carefully decided the things he was going to do to prepare himself for the day ahead. He rose from his bed, leaving behind his dreams from the night before. The old man grabbed a pack of cigarettes and matches from his bedside table, stopping to touch a picture of a young boy in an elegant golden frame. He carefully walked through the dimly lit hallway with light shining from a single bulb hanging from a thin chain. It emitted warm orange light, but not a comforting one. It was like light one would see late at night from a street lamp in some dark, damp alleyway. Eventually, the old man reached the end of the hallway and placed the palm of his hand on the brass handle of a heavy wooden door. As his hand came into contact with the handle, it sent shivers up his spine, with a sudden shock of coldness, clearing away any grogginess he retained from the night before. He opened the heavy door slowly, letting in dull rays of white light from the open window in the kitchen. It was a small room with a cold, white tile floor and a single window beside a gray plastic table and seafoam green chair. He walked over to the chair and sat down. The top of the chair dug into the skin of his upper back and made him wince slightly. He pulled the cigarettes from his pocket and lit one. As he exhaled, he gazed out the window at the ocean, noting the yellow-gray clouds that cast a shadow over the beach, chilling the few people scattered across the sand. Looking at the oceanscape brought memories and a slight smile to the old man's face. Today, no matter the outcome, he would be one step closer. The old man put out the cigarette and threw the butt into a dented, rusty waste bin by the sink. Pushing in his chair, he slouched back to the hallway, stopping halfway to open a closet door. The closet was empty except for a finely tailored black silk suit. He took the suit in his hands and looked at it grimly, bracing himself for what he knew he had to do. Showered and dressed, the suit felt stiff and strange. He made his way out the front door and to the stoop. He waited. A drizzle misted his face as a sleek black car pulled up to the curb. He nodded to the driver, climbed into the back seat as the car drove off, toward the venue where the dreaded press conference would take place. Thank you.
My name is Sophia, and my piece is titled Rainbow Bridge. Death, a state of lucidity and false awakenings. Yuki, once a pure soul, gone. As he runs over the rainbow bridge, those who loved him watch. Eyes slowly shut, hot tears quickly fall. The lifeless best friend wheels away for eternity. His ghostly figure sits, ball in mouth, tail wagging, watching the babies grow older. Whose once 9 is now 16, whose once 45 is now 52. Yuki, there since the day the now teenage girl was born, closely pays attention to the struggles and hardships she faces. When it all gets to be too much, when she feels her life slipping out of her own hands, he pays her a visit. His spirit warps into a foggy shape. His pointy ears spark up as she closes her eyes. The dreamlike state approaches. Suddenly, all worries she faces disappear. She's 8 years old again, putting plastic jewelry on his furry head, positioning a coloring book under his 2 paws, making it look like he is the one coloring. The soul of the lost dog and the soul of a broken girl intertwine, creating a glowing light. Ascending from the broken world, she finds her home within childhood pets. Within memories that are so long gone, they seem like a fuzzy dream. Her cold fingers dance around the top of his head. A feeling of abandonment rises in her stomach. Yuki can sense the anxiety. His old bones struggle to stand up, but he does. He pushes his chest and head into the crook of her neck. A slight back and forth movement comes from his tail. The one thing she spent years wishing to get back is finally able to comfort her in a moment of fright. Yuki knows what is needed to help her. He changes the environment around the two of them. He controls the dream. He shows her what she's meant to see, what she needs to see. His large body lays on the warm carpeted basement floor. As the girl approaches, she sees that he is covered in clothing. A green hat sits between his two soft black ears. An English flag lays on his back. This is the work of a little girl, the once 9-year-old who is also once 7. The memories render in her mind. She can see her father sitting on the floral couch, although he can't see the two of them. Nostalgia slips into her chest. These are the memories that can never be replicated. Yuki barks loudly. He's trying to communicate. Within seconds, the glowing light comes back. Now, they are in the old living room, the room that had red couches with indents from long evenings watching TV, the room that showed a family lived in it. It showed the good and the bad. Framed baby pictures sit tall on the fireplace mantel, keeping track of the growth of the two little girls. Yuki stands next to the teenage girl, her hand on his head, keeping her in the dream. He starts to howl. The noise isn't malicious. It's not evil. It's the howl of excitement, the howl of wanting to share news. She doesn't need words from Yuki to understand what he is saying. She learns that his only goal, alive and dead, is to protect those who saved him, the people that gave him a house instead of the streets, food instead of nothing, love when all other affection was lost. He still feels the love and affection that was gifted to him years ago. That'll never go away. But he wants to give back. He wants to give the girl the love that she can't give herself, the love that she never receives. You aren't alone. You'll always have me. Outside of the dream, the sun begins to rise. Orange meets dusty blue. Yuki doesn't feel scared to end the dream. He helped her. He saved her. Yuki slumps onto the floor, pulling the girl with him. He leans into her neck once more, giving her one last moment of comfort, one last farewell. This isn't goodbye. I'll be back. The loving words echo in her mind as her eyes flutter awake, and just like that, he's gone. Again. A glowing light, nothing less, nothing more, just a dog on the other side of the Rainbow Bridge. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Mila, and my piece is I Met Him. I was lost before. Life was dull, meaningless, uninteresting, and colorless. Every day was the same. I wake up drowning in sorrow and rot in bed until I had to return to reality. I eventually get up, dismissing the blurs of darkness in my vision, accompanied by the unsteady steps. I desperately check my notifications, praying that maybe someone cared to check in with me. I see nothing. Go downstairs and maybe eat something small, go back upstairs to drown in my melancholy. Head to sleep because no one wanted to validate my emotions, nor even just bother to send a simple hello. And then repeat. There was nothing. And so I spiral, waking up knowing no one understood me, knowing no one would ever relate to the thoughts that pivot through my head. No one ever understood me as much as you do. Meeting you made me realize there's color to this world. There's meaning. You've created a masterpiece out of our love. The paint strokes of each memory created with you. I look at the pleasing night sky and think, the stars were made for our gaze. It's unbelievable knowing someone loves me, knowing you love me. Who would have thought you could be interested in my instability? Yet, I could never express how truly appreciated you make me feel. No words describe the type of love you make me feel. You know how to validate my emotions and make me feel safe and loved. I never knew how much I could love someone until I began to love you. I've known you for years, and only recently I've come to my senses. I've grasped the knowledge of my true feelings for you. That day, April 8th, the day you said you loved me, that was the day everything changed. Every sorry thought I've ever pondered disappeared, and my days became sunshine instead of thunderstorms. Anything is possible when I'm in your presence. Hearing your voice gives me a boost of serotonin. You're like a drug I can't quite get enough of. Before you, I could barely breathe on my own. But when I feel your soft hands graze my back lightly, I remember to breathe. You're the one who keeps me stable. Without you, I wouldn't be able to function properly. You're the closure to my life story. You're the purpose of my life. You make me feel human. I'll stay here because you're the one who keeps me breathing. I met you. I met him. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Sal, and my piece is called Sunken Stare. A mirror watches a phantasm with a sunken stare and hollow cheeks. Black, stringy split ends tickle his leather jaw, framing swollen lips that drip with cerise blood. Stark white knuckles grip sticky countertop. Dead gray eyes bore into foggy mirror. Nothing feels right. No, nothing feels real. His scuffed dress shoes tap against the floor underneath him as he steps back from the bathroom sink. Sweaty palms that aren't his own drag over the velvet fabric of his black suit jacket, trailing down, yanking at the cuffs of his pants. Calm down, Alabaster. They aren't real. A burning, shaky breath stutters in his throat, fluttering out against the mirror and swirling a gust of fog over a rugged ghost. In one fluid movement, he swipes the blood from his bruised lips. The tugging worsens, frantic, desperate. Outside, linoleum skies cast a grim light against the blackout curtains draping across the bathroom window. Turning his head, Alabaster looks out. Headstones bathe in swirls of dark watercolor shadows. Ashes paint the charcoal trees that frame the field. The grass tickles a cold body soaked in cerise blood. He notices hollow cheeks, a sunken stare. Thank you.
This is Ode to a Lifetime. When I was younger, I had a group of friends with tangled tongues and translucent love. We would skate down lockered hallways, tow on rusted metal roofs, sing without shame, fall on floorboards from laughter, watch movies on popcorned floors. We were the lifelong, obscure, sarcastic, ecstatic, reckless, spirited. Our names were pseudonymized, and we would react like they were ours our whole lives. Our oxygen was each other, our lifelines laughter and doll heads. And I must have imagined this, but we all swore never to grow apart. Because how could we survive without dancing around a single flame, without tangled tongues and the love only transparent to us? My illusions of blood pressed between restless fingers, of a circle taut with held hands, of the belief of each other. Love was everlasting and time was infinite. But that was just a dream. And some of us woke up. Leaving the rest groggy and semi-conscious, the hugs between us finally broke. Our scars from the year before disappeared as they did. One by one, they left us without saying goodbye. They left without thought or remembrance, but the worst part wasn't the swiftness of their packing, nor was it the lack of emotion plastered across their faces as they faded from sight. The worst wasn't even how it ripped me apart. It wasn't that it tore me limb from limb. It wasn't that I felt alone when their tongues untangled and their love became solid. The worst was that I let them leave. I let them go because the words had caught in my throat. Wasn't this a part of life? Saying goodbye, waving to the people and the pain of the past. Why couldn't I do that? I never said anything when I heard the whispers at night. I never opened my eyes, never admitted to missing them. So here I am, admitting it. Admitting that I miss the ones who left, admitting that I miss skating socked on polished floors and laughing so hard no sound came out, that I wish I could go back, even if it meant I never met the people I have today, even if it meant giving everything up, I would go back. Because they were my best friends, and I didn't even care enough to say goodbye. Maybe if I told them what they meant to me, they would stay, but it's too late now, and I'm ungrateful. The three of us left slumbering in bed have stayed together. We clutched each other like castaways or much younger children, and eventually we woke up like that. We awoke and confessed to the reality of the lost members of our group. In a way, it made us closer, and we all stopped tiptoeing around the fact. It felt nice and yet crushing, as this is the thing we bond over. We talk a few times a month, Maybe almost every uttered word a question as to if we're still us, still lifelong, obscure, sarcastic, ecstatic, reckless, spirited. And it's okay because we have each other. We'll never disband, we can't, because how could we survive without greasy hair and attempted cartwheels? But it sounds too familiar to trust. Because I remember being close to still, surrounded by everyone I trust on a starry night. I remember giggled whispers and beanbags, how the trampoline became broken. I remember cuddling up to someone I don't even talk to anymore. I remember that we all shuffled down carpeted steps instead. I remember sleeping in a bag that wasn't mine, and I remember waking up groggy, but content, even with a ringing head. And now I think back, and I know that those people are gone. And if those people, the ones that felt like the best friends I'd ever had, can go years without a muttered hello, without looking back, without a glimpse of familiarity, what says you won't too? What says you won't forget me as they've forgotten us? What says your tongues will stay tangled and your love will stay transparent to me? And who cares if we're older now? Who cares if we have different lives? Who cares if we have different friends? Because I still care about the people on that trampoline. I still care about them so much, and I care about you so much too, because you're my best friends. You have been this whole time. You've hung on the longest. And what if I'm not ready for the next wave of consciousness? What if I'm too tired? What if I'd rather let my head sink into the memories of who we used to be and what we used to do? And what if when I wake up, I'm thrust into a world of fixed trampolines and returned jewelry? What will I do without carefree opinions and untouched toothbrushes? I'm not ready to grow out of the people who taught me how to love. And I should let you go. I should let you move on because you can't save everybody, and that's okay. And my feet stay planted on rusted metal roofs, and this must be a dream, but you might stand with me too. And although we're not all found dancing around a single flame, although some of us lay where we never thought we'd find them, the three of us clutch each other like castaways, and much younger children. But our tongues stay tangled and our love translucent. And this is an illusion. It's us versus the world. Thank you.
Hello. My name is Isis, and I'm going to be reading a piece I wrote called Disposable. I never knew that people were disposable till I met you. You showed me that people are too good to be true. A promise that you had made to me seemed to have disappeared from your mind. Instead of you taking away everything that I thought I needed, I wouldn't have you do anything better. To be honest, I'm glad I found out your true colors. I used to think you were strong. Turns out you're too weak to say what you really mean. So instead, you keep it to yourself. I never needed a person like you in my life. I saw your flaws, yet I ignored them. I was stupid. I should have taken the hint that you had given me when you lifted some of your skin. It's on you. I don't have you anymore, and that's fine. You know, it's really ironic. Our friends found out about you too and made the smart decision to leave. You tried to keep them away from me. You even forced me to take your side. It's actually pretty funny. I reunited with them, and you manipulated me into thinking badly of them. You said you would leave me, only because I wouldn't abandon them. The truth is, you need me, not the other way around. To be honest, I'm glad you left. You never listened to honesty, and you only talked about you. I may have lost you, but I gained the best friends I've ever had. And they aren't ugly on the inside. Too bad I can't say the same for you. But remember, Everyone and everything is disposable, including you. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. My name is Sekou, and I will be reading a poem called Wanderlust. Finality of a wistful last glimpse. Finality of wishing for one last reflection. No one knows just where and when. Winter will itself upon the wandering meek, mindful of the wraiths that wish to walk hand in hand with the body once again. Whether the weather will grindstone the sand into a great wake of glittering wind, into a wake of snow, hand in hand with the body once again, willfully into the surrender. Cold whisks the air away, while stealing life, sycamore-like skin cracking gray and white. Walk into the surrender, where the wretched still stand, wishing for adoration much like myth does to a man. Walk through the wind, whispers of the unknown faint in. Woe to the plowshare's fudge. Waltzing into summer, unburden the strings as autumn dies, asking, when will winter come? When wheat becomes bread, will there be enough? The sycamore wishes for the night bird's song, wandering across forests and sands, words to a world never revealed. Waste no tear on the writhing willow, with winding roots cracking rotten rock, weeping words into slipping soil. Wisdom is knowing when to let go. Windswept by love and mercy, willfully into the surrender. Wherever the mind wishes to walk, it wove itself in the wicker and blinds of windowless rooms and wilting skies, shadows stolen by the widow's web. It was how worthwhile dreams survived, wrapped in memories that are wished and willed, there in wanderlust. Frown of the moon, rout from our wrath the wendigo, woe begone by the ravenous warped hunger, the worshipped wail away with into the woeful nights here. Perhaps it was, carved into the wrathful wood, written into the worthless flesh of the sycamore and the willow. Wearing whispers of the reeds flow beautifully while waiting in the weeds. For a path through this world, whether it becomes a warmth of love or the wrenching sadness that whirls upon a wayfaring world, we will away ourselves willfully into the surrender. Thank you.
Hi. Oh, there we go. Tonight, I'll be reading my piece entitled Dreams. I grew up here. Part of me has always been buried here. Thunderheads jostle from space in the summer sky. The air is heavy enough to create a drag on my steps. Or maybe it's just my natural hesitation to walk up the long stone path to the front door. The house in which I grew up in looms, as it always has, grand but not beautiful. This neighborhood is filled with mansions, but none of them feel like homes. Having to return was not something I'd had wished for. In fact, the very thought of coming back was dreadful. I haven't seen my father in 9 years. When I enter, there are no hugs. Hugs are luxuries of the weak, and this family is carved from petrified wood. There's a faint current of electricity rippling through me as I enter, bringing goosebumps to my arms, equivalent to walking through a collection of ghosts who desperately try to drive me out. Soon, the goosebumps fade, and I breathe in the familiar smells of this house. The ghosts allow me to pass for now. My feet drag me up these gentle wooden stairs, remembering moments from my childhood, remembering more good than bad. I let my head fall, rushing past the last few steps. Stop, I thought to myself, looking down this narrow hallway. Somehow, it looks so different. It's not my home anymore. This house weighs me down like cement in the ocean as I rush past the foyer. I can still feel the essence of my forsaken childhood lingering with every step I take. Thoughts continue to consume and overwhelm me. It's not the same, not since I've been gone. Thank you.
Can we have one more round of applause for the underclassmen? All right, everyone, we are going to do a brief 8-minute intermission, so get up, stretch. If you need to use the restroom, go through the doors here and follow the blue carpet. Be back in 8 minutes. Welcome back, everyone. We are going to continue this evening
Hey,
with...
Miss Flood.
Yeah?
Did you hear about the creative writer who became a tailor?
No.
He had to make an earnest living the Hemingway. Get it? Ernest Hemingway.
Anyway, our next piece is about the theme...
I have another one.
Okay, if you insist.
Did you know I'm a writer?
Oh, really?
My pen name is Bick.
And you're done.
Oh, come on.
You're
but
done.
I mean,
You're
come
done.
on.
No, you're done. You're done. Now it is apparently clear why they sent me to join you.
Because I'm the life of the party, right?
Oh, for the love of God. Okay, please join us in welcoming the first upperclassman.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Jashawn Bobbitt, and this is Two Opposites of a Whole. Dark. Dreadful dark. Why must the dark be treated as the bad? Why must the dark wish for something it needs but will never have? Light. Lustrous light. It gets what it wants without so much as to putting up a fight. It gets what it wants fast, faster than a blink of an eye. It gets what it wants fast, faster than the switch of a light. Didn't you know that in every darkness there is a light? That the darker the night, the brighter the light? Take the yin and the yang. It shows how neither is absolute. And that without the other, it would not be a thing. Without the dark, there would be no there would be no light to shine. Without the light, there would be no dark to hide. Without a start, there would be no end. Without an enemy, there would be no friend. Now take all that I've said and apply it to the color of our skin. Take a look at my darker skin and see my light within. See how I too have a light inside me as you have a darkness in you. See how both make each other exist and that there wouldn't be without the two. Remember, in every darkness, there is a light, and in every light, there is a darkness.
I'm Shelby, and this is Poison Tree. The poison tree, unsettling and grim, limbs twisted and disturbed. They grow with no set shape or pattern to them. Charred bark covers its body and leaves of ash leach from the branches. It bears the fruit of sirens, tasting of the sweetest cyanide. Droplets of the poison liquor drip from your lips as you sink your teeth into its flesh, slowly peeling away and devouring your skin with every drop, ripening your crimson lips to the perfect hue. The fruit consumes you as you do it. Is the intoxication worth the stolen pieces of you? The sweet aroma of the poison filling your lungs and suffocating your senses, stealing away your thoughts and holding your mind captive in its serrated claws. There's a strange comfort in the euphoric state it holds you in, numb to the agony it brings, only feeling the savorous mescal tear at your cheeks. And with every bite you lose yourself and erode away, into only a shell of what you once were. Taken by the cyanide you once thought of as so sweet, a once conscious mind turned to a spoiled rue resting in your skull, and your pale skin ripped and torn from the venom you couldn't help but have more of. You sowed these seeds when you picked the fruit from the poison tree, kissing death when you pressed your lips and bit deep into its skin, all for a taste of something you knew you could never keep. And yet, until all of that was left of you was porous, decaying bones. The soil softened and consumed all that remained. Buried in damp and dirt, cuffed and chained in the coffin of roots, now forever a part of the cursed poison tree.
My name is Della, and my piece is called The Space Between. I don't remember my first nightmare. I remember noticing for the first time that when I opened my eyes to the darkness, I couldn't tell whether or not I was still dreaming. I remember how, in my chest, I felt the sparks of a lit fuse burning through me. My body crackled like 1,000 fireworks. I remember how my fingertips grazed our peeling wallpaper as I felt my way to your bedroom. I remember how you woke up before I even said your name, tucked me into bed with you, and wiped away my tears. When I told you that I was still too scared to fall asleep, too scared that I would never stop crying, you said, "As long as I am your mother, I will hold your tears for you." The first time you cried in front of me, I must have been only 3 or 4. By then, I had gotten the idea that only children could cry, that one would outgrow it somehow, somewhere in the space between me and you. Seeing you cry then was like watching a rainstorm hit the sandy dunes of the Sahara. When you cried, you wiped your tears like an apology and warned me not to come close. Still, I wonder, who were you protecting?
My name is Naya, and my piece is titled Drowning Sorrows. A girl who struggles to find hope in the world. Let down again, she tries to hold on to memories fading. They once brought her joy, now they come bearing the sorrows of the real world. Every now and then, she reminisces on the times when the sorrows weren't hers. She never knew anxiety or depression. She never felt unwanted or unneeded. She never knew what it meant to overthink. She never used to always bounce her leg, peel at her skin, or constantly feel hopelessness. She never had to drown in her sorrows. Now she thrives to please, fears disappointing or not living up to the world's expectations, constantly feeling like people are watching, judging, and making their opinions. Always an outcast, critiqued for being too loud, now she's drowning in her sorrows. Overwhelmed with school, work, life, left with 2 choices: drown her sorrows or drown in them. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Farida Musa, and I'll be reading Mind is All That Matters. Okay. I remember a time when my father would come home, battered down and overshadowed by the sun. Those days, the days I never would have come to realize would become the comfort of my very existence. The days when my biggest concern was the flies devouring the freshly cut fruit I'd prepared for Baba. It was a time when life's biggest hassle was rushing in and out of the market, trying to purchase something good, because that's all Baba ever deserved. But I'd usually get distracted, especially towards the end of June, when the preparation for Sudan's biggest holiday, Tabaski, would begin. My eyes would wander away and find themselves watching the village's oldest boys prepare, stabbing at the flesh for already deceased animals. I'd always end up leaving empty-handed, drowsy because of the sun's abuse and the sacrificed blood of the animals. It was a time when many people in the village would stop by my house. Though it wasn't much, towels falling off the roof, the door twisting off its hinges, people always seemed to gravitate towards it. It was usually the orphan boys asking to watch me milk the cows, deepening their voices, calling me by my full name, and trying to convince me that they're my father. I always replied back, playing along with their antics. The kids once recruited their eldest brother, Abdullah, to fool me, and I almost was, until I saw the shadow. I had come to recognize my father by his shadow. It was unbalanced and always accompanied by a long curled hat that was given to him by my late mother. It stretched far, piercing the gates with his meaningful presence. However, his shadow would mislead you. My father was a small man. His pants always clung onto his bruised legs with large sweat stains that always seeped through. We never received much rain, but seeing my father in that state would cause my young mind to think he ventured into the unknown, the adventure of a lifetime. I think it was my innocence trying to protect me, making me pay a blind eye to the hardships my father would undergo. The cold reality of it was that he was a slave to the economic system. He worked 13 hours a day, maybe more if one of his students' parents offered him a meal. He'd accept it, but would never eat any of it. He'd always give it to me, swearing that he had eaten before. But just like his shadow, his body betrayed him. His good leg was so weak that he'd have to constantly shift his weight onto his shorter one. Sometimes I had to support him when he stood, but he refused to ever let me assist him when we left the comfort of our walls. You can't let them see, Naima. They associate weak bodies with weak minds, and although one is better than the other, if they see your body is fractured, what good is your mind? If a person wakes up and their first thought is how they will make simple movements without falling, when will they ever have time to think about the things that matter? No one will ever see you as more than your struggles. I won't let them diminish the only thing that I am seen for. After all, the mind is all a man will ever actually have. Baba had intelligence crafted by Allah himself, but this was one of the things I never agree with him on. He'd consider it naivety or pity whenever I'd say this, but never once did his intelligence falter when I'd see him struggle. He was an inspiration, a beacon of knowledge. He argued that it was my emotion that clouded my judgment, that if he had not raised me, if it were another life, if I were to have seen him limping and tripping over his own feet, I wouldn't have had such fondness. In response, I asked him, "But Baba, what if you never had to deal with what you dealt with now? Do you think you'd view yourself as lowly as how much you claim others do?" Perhaps. Perhaps? Experience is what makes a person. If I did not have to clean dirt out of my mouth or force my body into place, then I'd. It's the obstacles people have to overcome that will make them understand. It's the pain, and if it weren't for it, I'd be sitting on the same throne of ignorance as they are now. No matter the place, the world, or time, I'd always consider Baba a gift, molded with intelligence and wrapped in kindness, and marble on the inside and out. If only he had more time. Not money, not power, just time. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Ariana Smith, and my piece is called The Fishing Line. Deep dive into the zone below. Fixate your eyes on the prize. Don't diverge or stop in your tracks. Keep going down. Swim for your goal. Until it tears that line that connects everything to the single thread of man-made fiber. Hooked to an earthy scent of worms, you swing your tail. The line reeled you from your goal. Fear and panic kick in. Adrenaline racing through your gills, oxygen dissipates quickly from your mouth, especially the water splashing above you. The illusion fades, your hope depletes, and the broken metal appears. Your life flashes, the humans chuckle. Just when you think you'll be unbothered by their presence, humans always find a way to torture others. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Gabby, and this is The Eve. Blair runs through the forest, slapping tree branches away from her tear-stricken face. Running is all she could do. She does not know what's behind her, and frankly, she doesn't want to. Stopping now would mean death for her unfortunate soul. The sight of the beauty queen of the town was not a nice one. The slimy ground brushes against her bloodied, swollen feet. It's tricky for Blair not to fall, slipping every other step, only to catch herself. Not far behind her are the footsteps of her pursuer. She didn't know what it was or who it was, but she knew it was nothing good. The footsteps abruptly stopped, but Blair wanted distance. So she bent down and took a few breaths and kept running. She was so far into the forest that everything looked the same. The way out was nowhere to be seen. It was a stupid prank, she thought. I didn't mean for it to turn out like this. She was ripped from her thoughts as she heard the branches above her creak and groan. She couldn't stop. And she didn't. She ran faster than she ever thought was possible. Blair could feel her body burning, her lungs jabbing at her sides just to get her to slow down, but she couldn't. Fending the branches away from her tearing at her face seemed like the least of her problems. It's funny that a few hours ago she was the talk of the town. Now she's scrambling to live. She didn't give anything. She would give anything to get back to her life before all of this. She couldn't. So Blair stopped running because she had an idea. She reached into her pocket and grabbed the keys from her that she thought she lost. Just as she did this, the branches above her stopped moving until the creature lunged at her, and Blair stuck the keys in its eye with sheer luck. The creature toppled Blair to the ground, and she felt its pointy hairs on her and finally saw its monstrous face. It took her a few minutes to get it off. And when she did, she started limping to a tree that provided coverage. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Lilia, and I'll be reading Double-Edged Sword. The humid gust of wind licked at my face, its hands brushing through my hair and puffing out the clothes that clung to my body, relieving me of its sticky feeling. I want to stay a minute longer, to close my eyes, to feel something. The wind roared again, carrying a leaf as it climbed the ledge of the cliff. It twirled and bent as it played in the wind. Together they raced back to my small village. I began to chase that wrinkled, red-tainted leaf, trying to scope out when and where it was going to land, and if the wind would ever stop its relentless blow. I stretched out my hand, ready to catch it. At least then I would know where it would end its journey. I heard my mama call my name, her figure hazy in the distance. I ignored her call as I leapt. The rough, crispy edges played against the tips of my fingers, the long reeds of grass tickling my upper calves. Before I was able to wrap my hand around the leaf, I felt something grip onto my long draped hair. I flailed onto the dirt and yelped at the sprawling pain. Quiet now. Pay attention. It's my father. He was bent low to the ground, yet he still towered over the untamed grasses like a pharaoh looking over from his palace. His head faced the horizon, his emerald green eyes focused on something I couldn't see. I squinted toward the sun, my scraggly arm doing little to protect my eyes. I slowly began to rise as my father's hand pushed down on my shoulder, his weight making me stumble. He smelled of sweat and pine cones. Instinctively, I smelled myself, tangy sweat and dirt. I rubbed against him to try to attach his scent to mine. Uncurry, stop! His stone hands clutched my jaw, turning it to face a small white-tailed deer. We'll show your mother all you can do. I wasn't sure if what he said was meant for me as it was for him, but I nodded my head anyway. On cue, I hear my mama call for me more urgently. Mom! Abruptly, my cry was snatched from my throat, father stomping it into the ground as he took chase. His large body cut through the reeds, the uneven ground flattening out as he ran. Then he leapt just as I had. I leaned in close to the ground and dug my fingernails into the dirt as if that would transport me to where he was. The boom of his success reverberated in my legs and ran up into my arms. I ran toward him. I didn't realize how far and how fast he moved until it was my turn to make the trek. I jumped into position before him, my hair clinging to my sweaty neck and forehead. Then I vomited. It was staring right at me, the deer. Its neck was bent back, forcing the mouth to open and the tongue to slouch over onto its cheek. The legs were shattered, crushed by the weight of my father. Its ears drooped, the tips painted in its unique shade of red. My father stood over the corpse, the crud in his fingernails, his face the same as before, focused, relaxed. I felt embarrassed in his presence. I was bent over with my hands placed above my knees, my face flushed, and my cheeks sagged from the repetitive gagging. But there he stood, head held high from his throne. Thank you.
My name is Bodie Coe, and I'll be performing my piece, What We Leave Behind. Throughout our life, we cling to the back of time, our hands grasping at its coarse fur as it powers forward with practiced movements. It is upon this back where change is bred. It is from the hollow between time's shoulders that we watch ourselves begin to take shape. Aspects of ourselves are stripped away by the whipping wind, and in their place grows something new, something which can survive the ride on time's back. But the question is, what is taken from us during this ride? What are those pieces which the wind rips away from us? For most, it is innocent, something fragile that paints the halls of our childhood in bright colors, shatters at the slightest graze. Then, to take the place of that fragility, there is maturity, growing into the absence like a hardened scale, until it is a full suit of armor with which we can protect ourselves from the world. For some, it is kindness. After repeated injury, that too we lose to the wind. After it was repeatedly used as a means to harm us, the warm, welcoming hand we extend towards others turns cold and we withdraw it, replacing it in our pocket, until finally that kindness is overthrown by self-preservation. It is then we learn that detachment is a shield which even our own emotions can't penetrate. For others, it's the capacity to love. We give our love to the people around us and it is manipulated, used for another's purpose. For those we love are the only ones who can truly hurt us. So, we learn that it's easier to live without love, not for any desire to hate, but because we know the only way to avoid the suffocating pain, which all too often accompanies love, is to go without it. All this to say, watch over yourselves, because you never know what we leave behind when we hitch a ride on the back of time. Thank you.
My name is Anel, and the title of my piece is 2086. 2086. The rusted metal letters sloppily hung on the faded green door. A deep sigh released from my chest. I could tell, just from my entrance to this motel, that my experience will not be 5 stars as promised. But this late at night and all the other stays were full. The carpet was torn, jagged and rough, leaving bare holes of encrusted hardwood floor. Square, mystery-stained tiles covered the ceiling, some broken or missing. I wearily stepped up to the front desk and immediately felt the strong smell of stale cigarette smoke burn my nose. I had hoped to be cleaner in my room, but that hope quickly dissolved when I unlocked the rusty, weighted door. As I rested on the bed, creaking springs echoed in the still room. The abruptness startled me. "Who is knocking on the motel door?" I said aloud. "It's me," a monotonous voice answered. "Who is me?" "Me is you, I am me, and I came for the chains of mystery," the voice chimed. "Mystery? Chains? What could that mean? But the things on my feet are paining me. Wait, things on my feet." I looked down and strained my eyes wide. To my shock, there are big, rusty chains strapping my ankles. My feet were forced in place from the weight. I was stuck, and an unusual stranger was at my door. What could this mean? And why are there big, rusty chains clutching my feet? "May I come in?" the stranger uselessly asked as he opened the motel door. "Oh, yes, welcome," I stated in my most annoyed tone. But even my greatest attempts at annoyance or discomfort are policed by my mouth, which always covers what I feel with polite words. Why couldn't I tell him my distress? Why could I not say the words I so wanted to speak? "Why, thank you. I don't usually get a welcome, almost always a scream," the stranger spoke. The stranger was now in full view and standing in front of my weighted feet. A man, rather haggard, I say, short in stature, reaching only my chest, and a full stomach, plump and proud. His shoulders slumped low and his face stretched long. He was looking down at my feet sorrowfully. Around him was an invisible blanket of emotions, like he captured them and sewed them into a quilt. "Why, sir, I ask you again, why are you here in my motel room? And why are my feet stuck in place? This motel proves to be strange, stranger than the looks and even stranger in staff. You do work here, don't you? I assume because of your name tag, although I can't quite make out your name. Indeed, I do work here at this motel. I welcome you to my motel. Is this how you welcome all of your guests?" The man chuckled, projecting wall to wall. "Oh, you're a funny man. A shame indeed for what's to come in this motel room." "I don't see the humor. It's invisible to me," I spoke. I wanted to scream and release the ball of fear engulfing my stomach, but the man kept laughing. His hands held his stomach, and I watched his name tag shake in place. He didn't stop laughing. I'm not sure why. More laughter, more noise, bellows on top of bellows. My head swelled and deflated with every laugh. The room began to slosh like a boat caught in a storm. His laugh was too loud and too grand, burst through my ears and banged around my eardrums. It was painful now, like my ears were bleeding, like my blood vessels were bursting. Losing all control, my body slumped into the floor. Still stuck in place with my stilled feet, I was burying my head into the red, musk-smelling carpet. "End this now! I see my end, please!" I cried. I scratched and clawed and dug my hands into the rug, all to escape the harrowing convulsions his laughter caused. My weighted feet still refused to move. I never knew it to be possible that laughter could bring so much pain. It was churning my stomach, sloshing my brain, prickling every nerve end. All I could feel was burning, my skin melting off my body like molten lava. "Too much," I agonized, and tears leaked from my eyes. Blood dripped from my heart. The walls were turning in on themselves, cracking and breaking. The room was caving like an unfolded box. "Please, sir, stop! I beg of you." My only reply was more ear-piercing laughter. "Please, please, stop! Hear my pleas!" I screamed and screeched as if the louder my voice, the more he'll listen. My eyes, so heavy and hurt, slowly sank into the back of my head. I was floating away into sensory deprivation, completely dissipating into darkness. Before, I was begging the stranger to release my pain. Now I'm engulfed in the black. Black as night without stars or the moon, a black isolated from all. The laugh still banged in my head and pounded my body, but the black was so deep and mysterious that it took my attention. I wanted to go deeper into the ebony ink, despite not knowing what was within, but then I saw something. I saw a memory of a red shoe. It was a single ruby, shiny heel without a foot. I reached out to feel the reddest of most red heels, but at last silence. Not an utter, not a noise, not a single laugh. The stranger ceased to exist. Peace hugged my body. When I looked down, the chains were gone and my feet were free. The air was light and cool again. My irritated skin calmed and settled back smoothly against my bones. A second ago, I was in the deepest pain of my life. Now, I'm fine. The pain came and went. My sorrow was a destructive wind. It caused great damage, but was invisible to anyone but me. "I should unpack and go to bed," I said aloud to myself. Yes, a splendid idea. I go to bed hoping a stranger won't greet me at my door tomorrow, but truthfully, I met a stranger the day before and the day before that. Thank you.
My name is Clancy, and my piece is called Like Mother, Like Daughter. For as long as I can remember, my mom has had epilepsy. I have always been the kid with the sick mom. People have always asked how my mom is before paying me any mind. Parents and teachers would constantly say, "Well, how is your mom doing?" And I would say, "She's good," and they would rave about the wonders of modern medicine or whatever new treatment they heard she was doing that week. But they did not truly know what was going on, or care for that matter. They could never truly understand or care for her the way that I do. They would never understand the deep connection we have that allows me to care for her. I am able to sense when it will come and go and what I can do to help her, but this seems to also be the source of many disagreements. She has always been a stubborn person, and as little as I would like to admit it, so am I. We would fight over whether or not she needs to sit, or if she needs medication, or even if it would be best to just stay home. I always knew when she would have a bad day, and while deep down, she knew it too, she would never admit it until it was too late, and all I could say was, "I told you so." This built up aggression towards her. I never fully grasped why this was placed on me. I felt the parentification of a young child in my mind as she tries to grasp and piece together her carefree childhood as it continues to be stripped away. Forced to choke down the truth of her situation just as her mom is forced to swallow her medication. I sense I have come across as if I have been complaining about my mom this entire time, and that is not at all my intention. I love my mom, I really do.
I hope I have not come across as if I am blaming her for her problems. That is never the case. I know if she could control it, she would. I know she would. And she has tried and given up so much for me. She risked so much just to give me this gift of life. With her condition, her brain could have exploded just from giving birth, and she was willing to risk that in order to have me. I know this is a gift, and yet it feels so often like a curse. If my mom was willing to give up so much, if she knew the risks and the pain she would be put through and decided that I was still worth it, then I must be. There must be a reason that I am still here, a reason she is still here, and a reason we still exist together with this close bond. I know deep down she tries to care for me and is so grateful to have me around to help her. I know deep down that without her, I would not know what to do. She has shaped me into who I am and has cared for me more than anyone. I know deep down I truly appreciate what she has done for me, although I do not show this. I know deep down she has overcome so much just to be with me and support me when I have my hardest times. I remember when I turned 12, she gave me a journal. It was one she had written when she was pregnant with me, and I remember reading the first page and crying immediately. I did not fully read that journal until I was older, and when I did in its entirety, I felt strange. It had made me cry once again, but not because I was sad. She wrote so genuinely about her experiences, being pregnant mostly, but about her life, her boy problems in high school, meeting her best friend, and this made me feel so connected to her. I felt as if I truly knew my mom. I had always known her, obviously, but reading that journal showed me a part of her I had never known. I realized I had known her disease more than I had known her. I realized that it had dictated my life just as much as it had hers. My thoughts and anxieties centered around it and how it would affect my mom. I had been so focused on getting to know it, trying to know everything about it and how to protect my mom, I had forgotten to get to know her. She became a person rather than just a disease. I realized I was just as sick as my mom, not in the way of a physical ailment, but in my thoughts and mind. As I read that journal, I saw what she wrote for me when I was born. She said I was more beautiful than she had ever imagined, like all the most wonderful things in the world were part of me. Finally, I saw that in my mom. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Kylie, and I will be reading Game Maker. Life is a game. You hit play and you're surrounded by an unfamiliar world, but with enough learning, you could do anything the game allows you to do. If you wanted the hardest achievement, you could do just that. If not, you could play it how you want. This game was made for everyone. Sometimes you come across other players. Will you trust them? They could ruin your playthrough. Or maybe they'll help you out, newcomer. Decisions. Choose a quest and run free. And just maybe, you'll be rewarded with a valuable prize you could utilize. It's a big world to explore, player. One life to make it the best you can. But can you? Every choice you make all adds up. Take a calculated risk and see how far you go. Will it set you back? Will it level you up? Will you lose some health? I can't spoil that for you. Find it out yourself. Thank you.
I'm Corinne, and I will be reading Beautiful Girl. Beautiful. Yeah. Beautiful. If I could choose one word to describe her, I'd choose beautiful. It's a simple word, but it describes her perfectly. It describes her curly hair that spiraled around her crown and fell halfway down her back. At times, I wondered what my fingers would feel like, entangled in between them, each strand, while lying next to her, admiring her every feature. running my pinky down her hairline. It describes her brown eyes, darker than that of the darkest tree. I love to watch them shimmer as she spent hours on end talking to me. When she'd come in close, I could only wish she'd see them sparkle the way I did. Beautiful describes her delicate skin, so tender, so soft, so cold. I remember her standing across the window and the sun laid a beautiful blanket over her golden skin. In that moment, the only word that came out of my mouth was beautiful. In this room we call ours, nothing else existed. Not drama, not people, not time. It was only us. We were the only two souls on the earth yearning for each other's company, touch, leaving our problems behind. She came to visit me less and less. And when she did, I couldn't recognize her. It's like someone came in and replaced her with a cheap copy, my beautiful girl. It was her eyes I noticed first. They were different, dull, hollow. The shimmer I once used to admire had disappeared. And her hair. She cut it from halfway down her back to halfway down her neck. She cut it with no thought. She cut it. She was so proud of it. She'd been growing it since 4th grade, and she cut it with no thought. I'm sorry, I miss the home we made together here. In this room, you know, sometimes I think it's my fault. I know that sounds crazy. It couldn't possibly be your fault. You did nothing wrong. She must have had some kind of problem. But I remember her eyes. How they stared back at me with such fear. It's like, for the first time in my life, I felt like the villain, and I didn't even know why. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Rowan, and I'll be reading The Sirens of Harvest. In a home older than my mind, a pointless bunker for failure, I clasp paper-thin hands over my ears, barely, miserably, muffling the sweet-sounding sirens of harvest. Voices dripping in honey wickedly serenade my bruised, battered mind of the fruits of success. They sing of their quality. The citrusy tang of effort, the sugary sweetness of success, yet never the bitterness of failure. As a harvester, I am very acquainted with that bitterness. Pure from its pungent taste, young and naive, I answered their calls. New and ignorant, I ate their fruit, no doubt in mind. Stupid and simple, I allowed myself to be cursed by foul, screeching beasts for an occasional sweet morsel. I became their servant, collared and leashed by taste buds and hope, placed in front of a clock to keep me on a seasonal pace. I didn't realize the shortness of that leash until I failed to comply, until I failed to try, until I failed to heed their call. My salty tears may have watered their fields. My eyes with repelling green and brown may have watched over said fields. The pain curl of my lips may have shined over their fields. Yet When I beg for success, when I scream for recognition, peace of mind, the ability to withdraw or decline, I'm gifted with bronze or failure. The third place podium, now a second home to my efforts. I'm given baskets full of failure to feed my gluttonous pet, an annoying mutt that at times reminds me of myself. Like the depressive dog, I cannot escape. I cannot go. Like the oppressive mutt, obedience is forced upon me, forced to roam the lengths of a leash of ambition. Thank you.
All right, let's have one last round of applause for all of our amazing talents.
We greatly appreciate you being here this evening to show your support, and we hope that you will come support our other students at their mid-year presentations. Dates and information can be found on the CASA website.
We have really enjoyed being your host this evening, and we hope we'll see you all at the Oscars.
Oh gosh, I'm pretty sure that is not happening.
Oh, a man can dream.
Get home safely, everyone.
Have a good evening.
Thank you.